Right, tomorrow Chelsea take on Real Madrid in our fifth and final game of our preseason tour of America. And to say that the preseason tour has been a mixed bag would probably be an understatement. We've seen some of both the best and worst that this Chelsea squad has to offer. We have seen just how well playing out from the back and building attacks from defence can work. And we've also seen just how easily teams with a lot of quality can combat those tactics and expose those tactics. We've seen early signs of redemption arcs that could be set to take place this season, and we've seen further evidence that some of the big money Clear Lake signings are not going to live up to our prior expectations of them. But now with just 2 weeks until the start of the Premier League season, I really do feel like new manager Enzo Maresca needs to be drawing towards a conclusion when it comes to what personnel he'll be using, how he'll be using them, and how Chelsea are going to systematically approach the 24-25 season. So in this video, we are going to speak about the game against Real Madrid. I am going to give my starting lineup pick, which at a glance may well surprise one or two of you. And most importantly, at the end of the video, we are going to speak about the sale of Conor Gallagher. But people, before we get into all that, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here, at the end of the video, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button. I have asked on every single video and I'm going to keep on asking until we get there. We are so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers, which when I started this YouTube journey just over a year ago would have been an absolute dream of mine. The places and the opportunities that doing this whole YouTube thing has given me could not be any more significant than right now as I sit and look out my window and look at LA where I am right now as I've been covering some boxing out here. I'm flying home today, and if we could hit 100,000 followers while I'm at the airport or on the flight, as I say, it would be an absolute dream to me. We are going bigger and better than ever before for this season, and this is the channel that you need to be tuned into if you want to catch all of that content. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. Right, so here's my starting lineup that you can see on screen right now. Jorgensen, I am going to go for in goal. It is now or never, really, isn't it? If we are going to replace Robert Sanchez with Jorgensen this season, then I do believe we need to put him in goal for the Real Madrid match. I believe we need to put him in goal for the Inter Milan match, and then us as the fan base and Enzo Maresca as the manager can draw some conclusions on just how effective Jorgensen can be. We only saw a small little part of Jorgensen in the game against Club America, and despite not seeing any of his shot-stopping abilities, I was impressed with his ability to be able to play out from the back. At this moment in time, I think we would probably have to rank Sanchez above him by default when it comes to shot-stopping ability, because although we might have seen clips of Jorgensen at Villarreal, I don't think anyone would be being honest if they sat and said that they had watched Jorgensen week in, week out last season. So, in the next 2 matches, I want to see him in goal and I want to see how he fares. Now, I have gone back to the original system, the original formation that we had seen from Enzo Maresca in pre-season. Too many Enzos around here, isn't there? Enzo Maresca in pre-season obviously started off with this. He had the 2 players sat in front of the 3 at the back. One was an inverted fullback. Now, he was starting off with Reece James doing it. Then he moved to Malo Gusto doing it. But I will speak through how I envision this team looking. Reece James, right centre-back. I'm going to have Wesley Fofana in the middle, and I'm going to stick with Levi Colwill out on the left-hand side. Now, I understand that a few of you guys may well pick Badia Shield to be over there. I think a very small minority of you might pick Ben Chilwell to be over there, but we do need to stick with Levi Colwill. We do need to persevere with Levi Colwill. There is a reason why Liverpool, there is a reason why so many big clubs, I think even Manchester City, were in for Levi Colwill. We need to be patient with him. He is a top player. 1 or 2 individual errors, but I've always said a defence is what you make of it. And if a defence is leaking and there's mistakes being made around you, it's very very hard to be a shining star in that defence. It's not like the attack, you know. You can have a lackluster attack, but one man can really stick out. At times, it was Cole Palmer for us last season, whereas in the defence, it's very much more a unit, and everyone needs to be singing off of the same hymn sheet. I think we all understand that the most important thing is sorting out this defence and getting it in a structure that works for the Premier League campaign. Now, in front of the defence, I have gone with one of my standout players from this preseason in Romeo Lavia. He's really impressed me. I've spoke time in, time out, not only about his defensive ability, but also his creative ability, and I'm going to pair him with Moises Caicedo. Now, you guys might look at Moises Caicedo in that last match and think, hold on, there was a couple of hospital passes in there, and you didn't look up to scratch, and you're not coming back from injury, you're just coming back from an international tournament, and I would agree with you. But let's remember the level up that we will see from game to game as part of this pre-season tour. Moises Caicedo, if he starts, will have a way better game against Real Madrid than he did against Manchester City. And although he did make those sort of individual mistakes in there that would definitely knock his player rating down if you read into those sort of things, actually Caicedo did show some good moments. He did show some composure. I just think he's not up to scratch at this moment in time. But in the Premier League campaign this season, he, for me, is going to be one of our most important players. So we need to use this match as an opportunity to get him up to scratch. Now, you're probably looking at that and thinking, okay, so you're not going with the inverted fullback, you're just going with 4 at the back. Just wait, because in a minute you'll see a graphic of how our team could change and how our shape could change going forward. Now, speaking of going forward, I am going to put Noni Madueke on one wing, Raheem Sterling on the other wing, and just behind the two of them, we are going to have Nkunku and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Now, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is growing into this team, but at the moment, he doesn't actually know any of the boys that well. He wasn't even playing in the same league as them last season. Obviously, he knows Chilwell from his time at Leicester and probably Fofana as well, but he is still gelling with this squad. What I've seen from him so far is he is massively creative. He has got very good vision. He can split the lines of passes, and he also gets himself into positions in this system where if his finishing can be a little bit more clinical, which I'm sure it will as he gets match fit and as that timing gets there, he is going to chip in with plenty of goals and assists for us next season. One man who could be in contention to even overtake Cole Palmer if he stays fit when it comes to goals and assists is Christopher Nkunku. I want him to have a little bit more of a free role as Enzo Maresca has been giving him in this system, and despite me feeling like he was one of our better players against Manchester City, and he did carve out a couple of chances for himself, I don't know whether Christopher Nkunku is going to be best in that number 9 position. And it's strange because when he was brought into the club with his goal-scoring accolades over in Germany, I very much thought that that is where we would see Nkunku. But the more I see of him in a Chelsea shirt, the more I feel like his creativity may well be wasted if he isn't a little bit deeper. So I've got no doubt at times he can go into that number 9 position, he can float around, but I do want to see him just behind in that floating a almost second striker role. Noni Madueke's impressed me massively in pre-season. I think there was one game he had which was a little bit more of a quiet game, possibly the Celtic match, but apart from that, he's looked really good. And I always spoke, not blowing my own trumpet here, but I always spoke about the importance that Noni Madueke would have in an Enzo Maresca system. He's very good at taking men on, he's very good at beating men, but one man that I definitely did not feel had those sort of attributes or would be able to show those sort of attributes off the back of what we had seen from him so far in a Chelsea shirt was Raheem Sterling. My main problem with Sterling was the inconsistency. But when you delve a little bit deeper into it, and one thing I'm always open to doing on this channel is admitting I'm wrong. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm wrong because Sterling's been ripping it up somewhat in pre-season. But I hope I was wrong on it because there's nothing I would like more than Sterling to really come good, really have that redemption arc this season and become one of Chelsea's most important players, which would put him in alignment with the salary that he's on. Now, with Raheem Sterling, the amount of consistency, God, it's hard for me to say, isn't it? First thing in the morning, I need a black coffee to be honest, but the amount of inconsistency that he has showed in his Chelsea career has been very concerning. There's been matches, I look at last season, like the match against Manchester City, the match against Burnley at Turf Moor. There's been so many matches. The match against Luton at Stamford Bridge when Raheem Sterling has completely torn the opposition a new one. But then there's been periods of 3-4 weeks where he just hasn't been able to show up and hasn't been able to replicate those sort of performances. However, we have changed a lot as a club, and the club have not shown consistency. So maybe Raheem Sterling needs a more settled system to be able to get the most out of him. And maybe one of the main factors there comes to a lack of defensive responsibility that he may well have under Enzo Maresca in comparison to managers from the past. You know, we even saw Graham Potter play him as wing-back at one point. That was never going to work with Raheem Sterling. So now that we know that the wingers will be pushed forward, they will be hugging the touchlines, and they will be encouraged to take on their men and really show that creative flair, maybe we're going to see the best out of Raheem Sterling. You'll notice that I have gone for Mark Yu up top. Obviously, Nicholas Jackson can potentially be coming back into contention for this match, I believe. But after that ankle sprain, I do think it will be a bit much to put him in there from the start. And I am relying on him in this Premier League campaign. Also, Mark Yu, not that it's any massive added incentivization, but he did come through the Barcelona Academy. So I do think that there's nothing more that he would enjoy, and potentially his family back home would enjoy, than him nicking a goal against Madrid. Now, this is what our shape could look a little bit more like when we're defending a lot more, when Real Madrid are having a lot more of the ball, which I can see they probably will do at times. You might look at Caicedo sort of inverting over to that right-back position and thinking, hold on, what is that all about? Now, listen, I spoke about the fact that Reece James had played in the inverted role, or even just in the central defensive midfield role for Wigan. And I spoke about the fact that he had done quite well there, obviously at a lesser level. Now, Caicedo used to play that inverted right-back role pretty often for Brighton. And I do think that possibly when you've got the defensive capability of Romeo Lavia in there, you've got Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall who can push back into that sort of central midfield position and offer cover as well there, who can get around the pitch, good legs, you know, good engine on him, then maybe you could see Caicedo drop back into that position, good tackler of the ball, very able to stop the wingers driving at him. Reece James comes more into the centre, and you just have more of a solidity in that defence. It may not work, but pre-season is a time, if there ever is a time, for a bit of experimentation. So I think that that could be something we could see in this match. I do think that that could be something that could work in this match. And then you would still have the attacking threat of Christopher Nkunku, Noni Madueke, Raheem Sterling, Mark Yu. And when you look at that, with Caicedo, with Lavia being able to challenge, get the ball, and most importantly with Lavia, have that vision to really move the ball on quickly. If you can get it up to Christopher Nkunku, Raheem Sterling, Noni Madueke, then we can counter on Real Madrid, and I think we'll have some real success in doing so. You might notice that I've left Enzo Fernandez, I'm about to say Enzo Maresca again, you might notice that I've left Enzo Fernandez out of that team. Nothing personal against Enzo Fernandez. I was annoyed that he missed that absolute sitter against Man City. I don't care whether, you know, you're an out-and-out goal scorer or not. When you got an open goal and you chip it over the goalkeeper, you can't be missing the target, man. You really can't. But that's not why I'm leaving him out of this team. I'd be happy to see him in there. I just do think that we have been lackluster defensively. So I think that starting two more defensively minded players in there, in Caicedo and Lavia, to protect that back three is going to be better than Enzo Fernandez, who I do not believe has the defensive capability in that deep lying role. However, if we were to see potentially Enzo Fernandez in there instead of Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, I wouldn't be averse to it at all. Now, Real Madrid aren't going to be quite as up to scratch as we are. I think this is only their third game, isn't it, in pre-season. The other two, by the way, they lost to Barcelona and to AC Milan respectively, and they are without a few of their big name players. Jude Bellingham's not there because of his participation in Euro 2024. Obviously, Kylian Mbappe, who they've just signed, who apparently is pretty good, he's not going to be in there just yet. So they will have some of their lesser known names, but they're also still going to have the likes of Courtois in there, Rudiger in there. They're going to have Modric, Endrick, Vinicius Jr. So despite one or two still being missing, this is very much still a team of big hitters that we are coming up against. And if we were to learn anything from the Manchester City game, me especially, Just because you might be looking at it and thinking it's a Real Madrid B team or a Man City B team like I did in the past, that doesn't mean that's not good enough to beat us. So we have to be on the ball and switched on in this game. And being switched on is so important. I think it is vital that we settle into this game as quickly as possible and do not throw the game away through individual errors. I think when you look at that Man City game, you could say that possibly 3 out of the 4 City goals came down to individual errors from Chelsea. And the thing is, as much as you feel like I might be clutching at straws here, I've got to be honest and tell you that I'd rather we lost the game because of individual errors than just being completely outplayed. Because if you're completely outplayed, then you're lacking in quality and you're not going to be able to hang it with these teams. But if we can stomp out these individual errors on the training ground, if we can help the boys adapt to the system in which they feel more comfortable and are less likely to make these errors, then I believe that we can hang it with the best of them. I have no doubt that our offensive threat will cause Real Madrid nightmares in this match. I think we can give them major issues, but we do need to play with a lot of belief. We have a lot of young players, and it may well be very daunting coming up against the Champions League winners in Real Madrid. But it's pre-season. They are a little bit under strength, they are a little bit undercooked, and even if they weren't, with the quality we've got, if we can tighten the gaps, then I do really believe that we can hang it with these sort of teams. And as I say, when I talk about tightening the gap, if we can make sure that we've got the defensive reinforcement, if the likes of Romeo Lavia and Caicedo can be there to help out that backline, you know that if Romeo Lavia can pick up a ball like that, he can get it onto Christopher Nkunku, he can get it onto Raheem Sterling, and the pace and the counter-attacking ability we have can cause them real issues here. Now, this Chelsea side have had a lot of young, great talent with really high potential and ceilings since Clearlake took over, but what I'm actually liking from what I'm seeing now in terms of the transfer business is the presence of Nkunku, Tosin, Jorgensen. The form of Raheem Sterling means that not only do we have that youth and potential, we're also now mixing it with a bit of experience that is going to be so important for us this season. Hopefully, that experience can drive us onto a better start to this Premier League campaign than we got off to last season under Mauricio Pochettino. But I am going to be honest with you guys. I honestly have no idea how this match is going to go, man, because we have no real basis of consistency to make that judgment on. We've seen so much tactical change in pre-season, so much experimentation with personnel and the positions that they're playing in. It's very hard for me to give you a definitive answer or a score prediction, but what I do know for sure is Enzo Maresca now needs to be fielding a starting lineup that might not be a mirror image of what he's going to play on the opening day against Manchester City, but it needs to be close to what he's going to play against Manchester City. These boys, fitness-wise, should be getting up to scratch now, and also, in the small amount of time we've had, they should be starting to form a real understanding with each other. I do think that in this game, and probably more significantly in the Inter Milan match, we will have our answers as to what system Maresca will play and who the personnel in there will be. Right, let's talk about Conor Gallagher, but before I do, I have promised you that myself and Josh will get in the studio and we will delve way deeper into the sell of Conor Gallagher, why he's going, why the club feel they need to sell him. The Trevor Chalobah situation, again, you can tell straight away I've got more downbeat from talking about this because I'm absolutely gutted to see Conor Gallagher moving on, man. And this move, and maybe more significantly, the handling of this move shows you exactly what direction the club are moving forward in. And that's not me saying that I believe that every single academy graduate will be put on the transfer list just because of the pure profit factor. But what I am saying is that I believe that had it not been for some reckless spending in the first year of the Clearlake ownership, had it not been for the signings and the overspending on the likes of Koulibaly, Mikhailo Mudryk, Aubameyang, Axel Disasi when they first took over, then we would not be having to sell off academy graduates right now to pay the price for that spending. And if you're yet to realise this now, please make no mistake, that is very much what is happening. The ownership coming in and wanting to flex their muscles in those first couple of transfer windows is exactly why you're seeing this now. And I am not saying that right now at this moment in time, I think that the transfer strategy is all bad. I actually think some of the transfer business this we're doing is quite good. But paying for the first 12 months is exactly why you're seeing the likes of Trevor Chalobah and Conor Gallagher being sold. And I'm sick and tired of the small minority of you guys in the comment section that are telling me that, oh, Trevor Chalobah and Conor Gallagher are no good anyway, and you're just being too sentimental here, because you're wrong. It's like you're living in the past. The question is not, is Conor Gallagher better than Frank Lampard? The question is not, is Trevor Chalobah better than John Terry? The question is, do Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah improve this squad right now? And if you want your answers, just look at last season. When Trevor Chalobah came back into the team, we didn't lose a single game. Conor Gallagher went from being first on the transfer list to first on the team sheet, captaining this club and fighting week in, week out for the badge. If these academy players that Clearlake have sold aren't good enough for Chelsea Football Club, then why have so many of them gone on to play for Champions League clubs? Ruben Loftus-Cheek ripped it up for AC Milan last season. Ian Maatsen helped Dortmund reach a Champions League final last season. Even Mason Mount played Champions League football for Man United last season. Christensen, he's at Barcelona last season. You don't understand what you're talking about when you're saying that none of these boys are good enough for the here and now of Chelsea Football Club. And you could counter it by saying, well, no, we need to strive for better, so we do need to move them on. And that's fine. But if you were selling them and bringing in world beaters, maybe it would soften the blow and maybe I wouldn't argue it. But that's not what you're doing. You're selling these players that understand the club and know the club to bring in unproven young players. And the worst part about all of this is you threaten to have Conor Gallagher train with the kids rather than with the first team. You basically were telling him he was going to be banished if he did not accept the new contract or the move. And why did you do that? Why did you not want him to train with the first team? You know exactly why. Because you know that the second that Enzo Maresca got his hands on Conor Gallagher, he would make his way into that first team. And that would not suit your plans to be able to move him on to get yourself out of the mess that first year of spending got you into. And I do think there's middle ground, by the way. I do think as Chelsea fans, we need to accept that maybe, as reluctant as we might be, the sales of Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah are going to be necessary to help us comply with FFP and avoid similar sanctions to the likes of Everton, Nottingham Forest, potentially even Manchester City. But that doesn't mean that it hurts any less. Another kid who grew up a Chelsea fan, came through the academy, dreamed of playing under the lights at Stamford Bridge, is being moved on against his will. And all I can do is wholeheartedly say, from the Chelsea fan base here, both Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah deserved so much better from this ownership. Now let's just hope that I'm right and this is a case of having to move these players on to make up for the bad work we did at the start of the Clearlake ownership. And if we look at the transfer policy now, we're not going out for those huge name signings that are unproven so much, and maybe this won't be a trend that we see continue. But if I said I was confident in that being the case, I'd definitely be lying. I really don't know, man. I'm really going to miss Conor Gallagher. Right, people, sorry to end it on a downer, but I had to get that one out there. I feel like I've let off a little bit of steam there, so that's a good thing either way. Let me know your thoughts on this match. Let me know your thoughts on the sale of Conor Gallagher. I'm sure you'd agree with me for the most part, and you're very disappointed to see him leaving. Let me know what you think of that starting lineup, and if you would make any changes to that starting lineup. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. We are getting so close to 100k. I really think we can do it probably before the end of the weekend or something like that, but I need you lot to help me. Smash the like button. That really helps push out the video as well. I will see you all in the next one.